Hi there. This is Alice Alicia Jones, and unfortunately, um, I jumped the gun today and didn't realize that I had pressed my button on my YouTube to go live, and as a result, had to press my button on Facebook to go live. So, those of you who are preparing to be with me at 1 o'clock, um, you can review it. You can review what you've missed in the beginning. Um, that's the beauty of a video is that it's saved and it's reviewed. I love doing these. I'm outside again because it's September 1st. No, I'm sorry, it's September 2nd. And it is just a beautiful day. And needless to say, I spent the last half hour in the garden and pulling weeds. And when I'm in the garden pulling weeds, I'm very, very conscious of all the fairy activity around me. I can't say they're happy with me um, because every single weed that I pull is somebody's home. So I let them go until they become just so annoying to me that I have to get rid of them. And this year, my uh, morning glories have literally, and my wildflowers have literally taken over my central island. Uh, it looks like a wildflower meadow, is what it looks like. And so my cultivated plants aren't really getting much of a chance. But I've been guided to do that, and hopefully in the future, I'm gonna put up a couple of stands with the trellis that will be dedicated strictly for the morning glories, and I hope I can corral them and convince them to go there instead of taking over my entire central island. They're in my azalea bush that is uh, an ever blooming bush. So its second bloom is ready to come out, and it's not going to be pretty. So I literally just feel that I do want to share my journey with you with the fairies because the Fairy Kingdom is part of the Devic Kingdom. And the Devic Kingdom is part of the Angelic Kingdom. I used to call it a lesser part. And then one day I had this unbelievable vision with this being that was as big as the sky. And I only saw her hand on her hip. And this booming voice came out and it said, different, not lesser. So I've got to make sure that every time I talk about the Devic Kingdom, that I say that it's just a different band of the angelic kingdom. The Devic Kingdom exists in the fifth dimension. Fifth dimension is where basically all your fairy tales come from, because at one time, man had spiritual sight. Man was able to see into the fifth dimension just as easily as he could in the third dimension. But what happened was that man became too enamored with the beings that existed in the fifth dimension that they followed their stories, and they kind of forgot their journey. They forgot about their own journey into clearing out the imbalances that they had themselves. And so the spiritual sight was withdrawn from man. on a overall basis. I mean, everybody had it. And if you go into some of the books that were published in Scotland, the books that where the fairies are given the stories from quite a while ago came in, you can see that when man stumbled into the fairy kingdom, how sometimes he didn't come back. He absolutely did not return. And so there were many other reasons. I think some of you have probably heard the word changeling, where a fairy would come in and rob somebody of their baby and leave one of their infants instead. And that infant was to grow up and become part of the human nature. So again, fairies are very mischievous. I I have had enough experience with them to let you know that just expect anything to happen. I mean, the title of today is Things That Disappear. And I have had a ton of things disappear in my life. Some have been returned, some have not. But recently, my husband just had an incident that happened at the cottage in Pennsylvania. And he was mystified. He absolutely could not believe that anything outside of normal explanation could possibly be the answer to this riddle. But I wanted to start off with this story, with what my husband experienced while we were up in Pennsylvania for 2 weeks. We have his grandfather bought a cottage there 75 years ago, and the cottage has been expanded, and every family blocks out their time. We usually block out 14 or 15 days. My daughter and her husband are there now. Well, she's going to be there tonight or tomorrow morning. He is there now. And it's for me, it's one of my most relaxing places because I like to really sit at the edge of the water, and it doesn't matter whether I'm on the bank sitting in one of the wonderful Adirondacks chairs that we own or whether I'm on the porch. And I like to look out over the lake and watch as the thousand points of light keep coming back towards the shore and drift because they start about somewhere between 12 and 2 depending upon how much sunlight is out there. Even in cloudy days, even in overcast days, those points of light just shimmer and show up. I was gifted this year too with being able to see the aura of one tree one time. Magenta, mainly magenta. Unfortunately, the trees that we had that were very, very common at the cottage were the ash trees. And the ash has been subjected to the ash borer. And so it's a little beetle that just gets under the bark. And unfortunately, it's killing all the ash. So unless somebody develops an ash tree that is immune to the ash borer, it's not going to be there. We've lost one gigantic ash tree that was a shared tree between two cottages. And so we split the cost of taking that down. But it was heartbreaking because that tree was so big that my arms reached halfway around it by just extending my arms fully. So you can imagine how enormous that tree was. Um, Interestingly enough, my grandson tried to use it as a table to put his puzzle on, but because it was a little bit slanted, it wasn't working. So he chose to go to a picnic table instead. But to get back to my husband's story, my husband has two Indiana Jones hats. He loves them. They keep the sun off his head, they keep the sun off his ears, which is really, really important. So we had gone out to dinner to a place called Finch Hill, and my daughter had used that restaurant for a breakfast for hers. It's a very humble looking little place. And, but yet, when I typed the best restaurants in the area, it was one of three that came up. So we thought, oh, okay, we'll give it a try. And as we left there, he thought he took his hat with him. He thought he threw it in the car. But when we came home, all of a sudden he realizes it's not there. It's nowhere to be found. And so he gets really bummed out because he has to keep a hat on his head. Those are doctor's orders. And he gets sunburned very, very quickly. So he absolutely needed a hat. So we went to the Dollar General store, found one for him for a whopping $5, which was wonderful. And we did that the next day. The following day, he all of a sudden, I'm in another room. I think I'm in the living room at this point, and he exclaims, "My hat!" He's like astonished. The hat is sitting on a chair, and the chair is right next to where he sits when he has dinner every night. So he had dinner the previous night. There's no way he would not have seen that hat, and yet he didn't. And so I know that the fairies have extended their playfulness, their prankishness into his terrain, and they want to include him in what we do uh, because they know I'm very happy to be with them, to talk to them, to recognize them, to just be. um to appreciate them more than anything. I appreciate them. Uh, there's something in the Kabbalah, I think, that says for every blade of grass that grows, there is a fairy. I think they might say angel, but of course they belong to the angelic kingdom, growing over that, bending over that blade of grass, saying, "Grow, grow, grow." So it breaks my heart when I have to weed my garden, but when my garden starts looking the way it's looking these last couple months, actually, um, it's I have no choice. I have to throw the weeds out. So anyway, like I said, my husband had his hat returned. He was very, very happy. Uh, he has two of them, bought them at the Brooklyn Museum, and absolutely adores his Indiana Jones's hat. My strangest occurrence for when things disappear recently, this is within the past couple months, is I was cutting an avocado up for breakfast. And for whatever reason, a piece of the avocado slipped. And of course, the skin is hard, and we have a ceramic tile floor. And I heard the thud of that slice landing on the floor. I looked down to retrieve it. It's not there. It's gone. So I'm like, okay. I kind of look everywhere around there. It's gone. And yet I heard the thud. So I know that uh, maybe they just wanted to see what an avocado tasted like. Maybe that's something they don't grow. I don't know. Um, anyway, the other last thing that happened, and I specifically wore this blouse for it. This blouse disappeared from me. This is one of my favorite blouses. because I can wear any kind of shell underneath. I have a black and white shell this time, but I can wear any kind of shell and just change the accessory, and and it looks good. And it has it's impossible for you to see, but it has a kind of a sparkly thread every like every inch on the blouse. So it's something the fairies would be absolutely attracted to. Well, it disappeared. And I know it had been washed, and we brought it home from the cottage. I had had it at the cottage. And the first time I went to wear it, because we've been home for, um, oh, we came home on the 28th of August, and this is the 2nd of September. So we've been home a good week, and no blouse. Absolutely no blouse. Not in my closet, not in the laundry room, not in the dirty clothes, no blouse. So anyway, I was miffed. I just absolutely was not happy about the fact that they took one of my favorite blouses. They must have gotten together, banded together, and decided, okay, well, we'll get that back to her, because within probably 24 hours of me looking for that blouse, all of a sudden I see it hanging with the rest of the laundry that had been cleaned. And I looked at that, and what can I say? Thank you. I can just thank you for bringing it back, for giving it back to me. Talk about clothes. The first time this happened to me was many, many years ago. I'm going to say in the neighborhood of between 20, 25 years ago. And for Christmas, I had received a velour suit that, just like a sweatshirt top and sweatshirt type pants, but it was in velour and I loved it. One was blue, one was pink. And because I liked them both, but I tended to wear the pink one more than I wore the blue one. Well, one day I went in to reach for the pink one, not there. And I know I had seen it. I know it had been hanging up. So again, I was miffed. I was angry. I just thought, but then I started to really, that was kind of at my opening to fairies. And so I really uh, wasn't aware of how mischievous they are. They returned that, but they didn't return it hanging up on a hanger the way I had it. They returned it crumbled up on the floor as if, here, you can have it back. It was kind of not spiteful, but almost spiteful. It was hysterical. I just literally, I cracked up because of the way it was just crumbled up on the floor. And it was clean. It wasn't like it was dirty or anything like that. It was clean. Um, so anyway, but I thanked them, and because that's the only thing you can do. Reading glasses. There was one time, I'm going to say about 15 years ago, that I decided I needed reading glasses. Well, that lasted maybe between 6 months and a year, because what kept happening to me is my first set of reading glasses cost me 20 bucks. And then I couldn't find them. So I thought, geez, I better buy 5 of them. And I thought, that's $100. I don't want to spend $100 just to have 5 reading glasses around. I thought I would just put them anywhere that I would have a tendency to pick up something to read. My desk, my kitchen, the end of the sofa, and the family room upstairs in the bedroom on the end table. Just wanted to have one everywhere. And so fortunately, I had a conversation with my brother at the time, and he said, "Alice, go to the dollar store. You can get them for $1." And sure enough, I did. 5 pairs of reading glasses disappeared. So I bought 5 more pair. They disappeared. So I bought 5 more pair. I had 15 pairs of reading glasses, and all of a sudden I realized, oh, I've got like 3 pair. And that's when I decided I'm not going to do this. I am not going to succumb to having to wear reading glasses and the fairies just keep taking them from me. I'm not going to do it. So to this day, I don't wear reading glasses. There are times where I can read if the sun is on my page, I read very, very clearly. If it's kind of in shade, then it's a little more difficult. But as long as I have good light, I can read, no glasses. And my sister, who said, "Don't you dare complain about having to wear reading glasses." I've had to wear them since I was 34. And so I thought, well, won't say a word and everything. But then I realized my fairies were trying to send me a message. You don't need them. You absolutely don't need them. I do eye exercises where I'll take my eyes to the top, to the bottom, side to side, and then circle around clockwise and then circle around counterclockwise. So I do this as an eye exercise, and it exercises the eyeballs as well as the muscles around the eyes. So anyway, what else? Oh, when I go to weed, this is really, really important. When I go to weed, um, I warn the fairies that I'm coming, that I'm going to be doing this. Because what happens is that it will something will happen to me that somewhere within that weeding experience, I'll end up with a thorn in my thumb. I'll end up with a branch slapping me or me stumbling over something. So I recognize that as long as they're warned, they will retreat and they will leave that area. And so they don't, they're okay with me weeding. They're used to it, but just give them warning. So that's what I want to share with you. Uh, there is a very charming movie out there. I don't know if you can still find it, but it's called The Borrowers. And there was a gal in England. I can just remember her first name. I think it was Mary. The I'll have to post it on my website because under my Reiki classes, because I talk about the fairies in my Reiki classes. But she had written a series of books on the fairies called The Borrowers, and then they made a movie about it. I think this movie, her series came out in the 50s. The movie came out in the 70s, and charming as anything. But if you can find it, um, Turner Classic Movies might have it, uh, but Netflix occasionally does have old movies that are interesting. So um, do go and try to find it. Uh, I just know that people at times have looked upon my words with extreme skepticism, and they basically say, that they just don't believe in anything that I talk about when it comes to the fifth dimension. And that helps me to recall Einstein's words that basically say, if you believe in miracles, no proof is necessary. If you don't believe in miracles, no proof is possible. So I really, all I feel with these videos is that I'm willing to share my experiences. I know that when I was in a gym class, I saw a little fairy with a little pink tutu, just the cutest little tutu on her, and she was exercising with barbells as I'm doing my yoga stretches. She's exercising with barbells, and I saw that with my physical eyes. I also, with my physical eyes, was at a drive-through to the uh, DMV to get my license and saw two fairy children come out of two little gnomes come out of the bushes and laugh and chase each other and go back into the bushes. And again, with my physical eyes. My sister also has seen a little gnome bound through the walls of her bedroom and then bound out the walls of her bedroom. And when she shared that with me, the first words were, "I hope you don't think I'm crazy, but," and this was her experience. And I've known too many others who have had experiences with fairies. All you really have to do is, first of all, just like Tinkerbell says, set your belief system in a mode that allows you to take and say that this is part of the experience of my life, and I will um, be I I am okay with it. I am okay with it. So please do not feel like the Lone Ranger if you've had experience with fairies but haven't shared it with anybody. I know a very dear friend of mine that I'm mentoring. Her fairies come in almost like speeding bullets. They just whiz by in so many directions, and she captures them on film. So she is an unmitigated source for the proof of fairies. She actually has the videos of them flying through. I know the only I've had several other experiences where, in one case, I felt them as I was going to a fellow healer's home, and I'm walking up her front sidewalk and walking up into her stoop into her front door. All of a sudden, I feel these nips on my ankles. They're very, very faint, but they're there. They're absolutely there. They exist. And I asked her, I said, I got nipped by a lot when I walked in. Oh, she goes, yeah, those are the fairies. They live inside and outside of her dining room because she has a bunch of plants right there at the window. So they just take their um, uh, uh, journey of being inside the house if they want to, or being outside the house if they want to. And I could feel them. And I just want to leave you with one last thing. If you put out your hands and just go to your periphery vision, just go to the furthest point of your periphery and see if you ever see twinkling lights in that periphery vision, those are fairies. So I'm going to wish you goodbye. It's 22 minutes, and I've been on this for about 25 because I started early. But I really do thank all of you who come in to listen to these because I know most everybody comes in afterwards. And if you want a book on meditations, please purchase Own Your Power. Available on my website, Alicia, Alicja Jones.com, or on Amazon.com. I too will offer free shipping and handling, and my bonus is I'll give you an autographed copy. I wish you adieu, and I thank you for being here, and I will see you next week. My intention is to speak on orbs. So it's kind of a continuation of fairies, but I'm not going to tell you anything more about that. Thank you. Bye now.